Your cousin Lisa got a new dog yesterday. New to her, I mean. Poor thing's been on the street forever. Yep, everybody knows old Roach. Brown old nature bag of fleas. Used to live across the street from me when I was a girl, with a woman named Misty Rhodes. Now, the thing about Misty Rhodes was that she was married to a man named Fred Rhodes. And Fred Rhodes was a Navy man, always out doing his duty, serving his country, and leaving Misty all alone in that big old house. Now, before you start getting any ideas, Misty came from an old family, a really old family, with really old money. The Hillwaters, they were called. Now, whenever Fred went off to sea, they would send one of their own to stay in that house with her, keep her on the path of God, as it were. It was during one of Fred's trips that Sam Hillwater came back into the picture. Sam was Misty's twin brother and a local menace to society. He stayed abroad for years after the Hills finally got done with his nonsense. Apparently, he and Misty were really close, to the point that Sam volunteered to stay with her and their father in the Rhodes house when he came back. It was pretty quiet there for a while, with not even a peep from the house or any of the people in it, not even on Sundays. Then out of nowhere, old man Hillwater passed in his sleep. The matter was private, of course. No one was invited to the funeral except the Hillwater family. And then, if that weren't enough, Misty finally returned to church a week later, with the news that her husband had died of illness in the Pacific. Soon after, Sam got Misty a hound with chocolate fur, just like her husband's. Roach, she called him. And it was understandable that Sam would bestow such a gift after the passing of their father, and then the passing of her husband, all in the span of a week. It was even more understandable that Sam decided to stay with her after all that had happened between them. What was strange to me, and to the neighbor kids, was the state of the dog. Every day I would walk by that house, and every day that hound would look worse by the hour. They kept him chained to the yard with no relief from the heat at all. No water, no shade, no nothing. His poor body was covered in bald spots as if he had been fighting for his life. Small stains of dried blood matted along his fur. And the look in his eyes? Oh, the look in his eyes. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen. I tear up just thinking about it. Now, of course, me and the neighbor kids weren't heartless. So whenever we could, we'd leave him a dish of water or food, and one time we even tried to break him off the chain that kept him to the fence. Before the quote-unquote man of the house came out, holding his rifle above his head and shouting out profanities I dare not repeat in front of you. It wasn't long before the adults started to catch on. Not just to the state of poor Roach, but to the household itself. Of course, Misty started coming back to church. And she laughed and talked as the woman that everybody knew. But it was Sam that was practically hanging off her shoulder whenever anyone saw them together. Needless to say, and without my knowledge at the time, of course, the community grew concerned. Not least of all, the Hillwaters. Now, I don't know if they looked into it or not, but I guess it never really mattered in the end. Because a couple months later, both Sam and Misty were found dead in the living room. Wounds gushing blood out of each of their necks like a river, and bite marks taking chunks out of their bodies. It was like they had been torn apart by some deranged animal. Naturally, everybody suspected Roach. It was long gone from the establishment at that time. For years, Roach had been hunted by every cop, hill wadder, and able-bodied person with a truck and a gun in the county.
But he evaded them every single time, and soon enough, people just stopped looking for him. That house remains empty to this day.
So, I don't want you hanging around Lisa anymore, is what I'm saying.